I want to play more creative than business, but I'm so business minded than creatively minded. What is the person you are 20 years from now want to see?
It's crazy how you went from living in a fraternity house and then within 2 years you're attending the Grammys and smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson. How does that happen? Tejas, we're live.
Danny,
Welcome.
thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I appreciate it. This is an honor that I'm on this show. Big
Yeah.
fan of, we were talking of a lot of the guests you've had so far. And so when you invited me, I was like, for real? For real? Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, man, you're an incredible guest. I can't wait to break down your story. And it's crazy how you went from living in a fraternity house,
Yeah.
2-3 in the morning, your fraternity brothers are knocking on your door telling you you're an embarrassment to the fraternity.
Oh, yeah.
And then within 2 years, you're attending the Grammys and smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson. How does that happen?
Man, first of all, you've done your research, which is so funny. You were like reminding me of like different memories that I've like locked away in a safe, which is cool. It's been the craziest 2 years of my life, right? And it's not even complete 2 years yet, right? So August 2020 is when I would say like things started, and that's when I found out about the app TikTok, and that's when I started creating. And ever, a lot of ups and downs, but I've crashed upwards so far, right? So like, and the opportunities that I've gotten, like the foundation is from TikTok, but I mean, I like to call myself a social hacker as well, right? So I find myself in situations where I'm probably technically not supposed to be, but yeah, you're right. Grammys was cool. Smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson's pretty cool. I have the tattoo right here. So yeah.
We'll definitely get into that. But when I looked at your story from afar, it really reminded me of The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Are you familiar with that book? Incredible book, and just the way he was able to get himself into situations that he felt like he didn't belong into. It was incredible, and it reminded me so much of your own story.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. I actually didn't know about The Third Door until like 6 months ago or so. And when someone told me it, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I subscribe to, right? It's like, how can I get myself into situations that I can later leverage into bigger situations, right? And then just scale up from there, right?
Yeah, it's one way. There's one way of going about that, which like feels wrong and is like slimy and like networking in like a weird way that doesn't sit right with me. But it feels like, from my perspective, looking at the outside in, you've done like a feel good networking with people who are like above your clout level. Like
total, no, you're
like
completely
you've done
right.
It in a real, genuine way. It feels like
100%, right? Like I'm very aware of the superficial nature of it, right? It's like, oh, this guy has more clout or power or money and knowledge than I do. It's like, how can I extract as much of that as possible in a more like mostly selfish way? But also there's a level that you go past that, because one thing that I subscribe to is you want to play long-term games with long-term people, right? And so I'll give you a story of the first time that I met two of my closest friends today, Dylan, now my now roommate, and Milad Merg, who's an incredible creator. They both started on TikTok creating point of view fast food content, right? So my roommate Dylan, he makes ice cream online, where he puts a camera like at his neck pointing down and shows his arms making ice cream. And Milad worked at a Subway, right? And they gained huge followings, right? Not only because of the satisfying nature of their visuals, but they told stories about their life on top of it, right? And so I saw their style of content, and I saw that Dylan followed me back on TikTok, right? And when that happens, right, you get that set of DMs, right? You have a channel of communication. And at this time, right, I didn't have many friends who were creators, right, being in that fraternity house, right? And the one thing I noticed is like, how are these people operating? This is so wild to me. I'm so curious. And so at the time, it was June 12th was the TikTokers versus YouTubers boxing event, right? And I saw this and I was like, this is a huge event. Like, this is something that, like, if I play the cards right, I can get myself just to meet someone else, right? And so automatically I started DMing every creator, right? Like mutuals and just people saying like, I have a free ticket. I didn't at that time, right? I lied about that. I was like, I'll get the hotels, your trip paid for, right? On top of that, right? What's the one thing that every content creator wants? content, right? It's like, can I make a situation where these creators have like just viral pieces of content for them, right? And so this event, the YouTubers versus TikTok's boxing event, I also planned out different things for them. So when I presented that to Dylan, I was like, a free trip, you get viral content. There's no way you can say no to this, right? Like the only sticking point is like, am I a cool guy? Like hopefully he trusted me at that point. And so he said yes, and he's like, can I bring my friend Milad? And so I had 2 days with them, right? They agreed to fly down. And you know, I could have gone into that weekend saying like, oh, if I can get myself on Dylan's channel with 10 million followers, that's gonna be big ups for me, right? Or Milad's, or like if they can get on mine. But instead I was like, you know what? These are the first connections that I have. Again, long-term games with long-term people. Let me just be friends with them. I'm not gonna ask him for anything, right? Let me just, Dylan, like tell me about yourself, right? And throughout the weekend, Dylan's one of the closest friends to date. We're roommates, obviously. Milad is a great friend of mine. And that has led to so many opportunities, which I'm sure we're gonna get into. But that's kind of the way I go about things. It's like, provide as much value as you possibly can at first, because you never know what you'll get in return.
Was there anyone who taught you this way of thinking?
I think nothing comes up to me explicitly. Obviously, like there's the Gary Vee book, right? Jab, 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 right hook, which is very similar. But even when I think about the times when in the moment, it just, for me, it felt like common sense, right? It's like, again, in a very superficial way, Dylan had 10 million followers at the time. I had like 300,000. There is no reason for him to really talk to me, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what can he get from me? Nothing really. He's way more successful than I am in terms of social media metrics. And so I was like, okay, what's a different way I could just get his attention? And so in that way, it felt like common sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You when you compare 300,000 followers to 10 million, but 300,000 is a
Yeah.
huge number.
Yeah.
And so there's a reason why Dylan followed you. Why did he look at your page, say, I want to follow this guy, I want to connect with him, or I like his content? What was it about your page that stood out?
No, I think this is something that a lot of content creators don't really ever concentrate about, right? It's easy to concentrate on, let me just get the most number of followers I possibly can, right? But no one really concentrates on the quality of a follower, right? And what I mean by that is the content that I make is for other creators, right? It's for other investors, entrepreneurs in the space, right? And when you think about that group, right, that's a very valuable group. And so the content, one thing that I've realized is every content creator, it's a very lonely job, right? Especially in the beginning, right? It's like you're the producer, you're the director, and you're the editor of your own content. And you're also running your own business. You're the CEO, CFO, and chief strategic officer, right? And you're playing all these different hats. And it's hard to like find people who have the same mindset and you like in the very beginning. Right now, 99% of the people I talk to is about this creator economy, right? But in the beginning, when I was in the fraternity house and Dylan was living in Michigan with his parents and Milad was in Jersey with his parents, right? It's like, I want to talk about this thing we call like social media and like how we create content, but you don't really like know who to talk to, right? And so when I started creating content about that, and so I have a lot of these creators who are, again, vanity metrics wise, a lot larger than I am, but they follow me for these things. Same thing with investors who are trying to invest in this creator economy space, entrepreneurs who are trying to build in this creator economy space. So I've found that's a hack, right? I found this space, this niche that there's a lot of attention in at the moment.
Yeah, and especially high value people or people who have the power to put out one thing and totally impact a bunch of other people's minds. It's incredible that you've analyzed that as the niche or that as the group of people. I want to go back though to you at the fraternity house.
Yeah.
And it's 2 or 3 in the morning and people are knocking on your door and telling you're an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like, what does that feel like at that moment? And how do you contextualize that?
Yeah, it's interesting to dive into that moment. I remember that because, during the daytime, all of your fraternity brothers are friends, right? It's not until the drinks start flowing at 2 or 3 in the morning where, once I really started getting into the groove of in the very beginning of content creation, you know, I was so locked into it. So I'd go to bed at 10 p.m., wake up at 6, right? I thought of like, I mean, that sounds not crazy, but in college, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember I would think of like content creation as another class. So I'd block off 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right. I'd be like, this is TikTok 101 when I make a short form piece of content. I was so locked in. And then, you know, there was times where there'd be a Thursday, Friday night where I wasn't drinking with my fraternity brothers, and like I'd get banged, like they would bang at my door at 3 a.m, like, dude, you're the face of I was the president, 2 of my fraternity, right? They'd be like, you're an embarrassment right now, right? It's like, you're like, what are you doing? What are you posting online? Which, to their defense, I was posting some really cringy stuff in the beginning, right? I was trying to be a quote unquote TikToker, right? The most general type. But really, I knew, I think deep down, I was like, I've never been more passionate about something, right? It doesn't feel like work. I know it sounds so cliche to say, but
Why
like,
were you so passionate?
I think the first time that I really started looking into the spaces, I started binging David Dobrik's content, right? 2018. I think I had a little bit more of a special connection because we're from generally the same area, suburbs of Chicago, right? His early vlogs were the same places I went to as a kid, Woodfield Mall, things like that. I was like, that felt very like, he felt like I was sitting right next to him all the time, right? And so, and I saw his content, I was like, this can't be that hard, right? Like, I saw the camera he was using was a point and shoot. That's like $200 at Best Buy, right? He's later upgrade, whatever. But I was like, I can do this too. And like, why do I feel so connected to him? Like, this is a crazy relationship I have with the guy I've never met in my life, right? A parasocial relationship, right? And I saw that, I was like, okay, hold on. Like, wait a minute. He just moved to LA. He just bought a car for some, like, so how much money is he making, right? And I'm a very business-minded guy, right? So I was like, okay, how does this world work? And I kept diving into it, right? So, I mean, like many others, I'm obsessed with YouTube. I'm obsessed with content. I remember there's a time I was taking a business ethics class, and the assignment was, what's a company that had a controversy and how did they respond to it? You know, all my friends did Coca-Cola and like Volkswagen and Wells Fargo, right? And I decided to do Sienna Mae Gomez, who is another creator, a TikTok creator at the time. She was the face of body positivity. And she released a merch line that said, one question was like, did you eat yet today? Right. And like, it came, I think, out of like good faith, but people interpreted it the wrong way. And it was controversy. And I was like, I want to do this project on her. That's like the coolest thing to me. Like, Coca-Cola is great and all, but like, I mean, it's been studied for 70 years. This is happening right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was a lot of things. I think it's just like how like close it felt to like, I have a phone with a camera on it. I can make these vlogs, right? There was a summer that I just spent like an hour or two every day on Premiere Pro until I got the hang of it, right? And it felt so natural. It didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like homework.
Yeah. I was watching those vlogs of you buying Premiere Pro and then getting it and using it for the first few times.
Yeah.
That was what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Yeah.
How wild does it think? I think you said something like the life of a creator, it's almost like you're going faster. And part of that might be because the amount of content you yourself are consuming. But how long ago does that feel to you?
Lifetimes. I wrote about this in a newsletter that I read. It's like, I think being a content creator is living 4 years in one.
Yeah.
Right. Just because, I mean, the amount I've learned this year, which it was supposed to be my senior year of college, right? I've taken a gap year. I might take another gap year in a year after that. But the amount of experiences that I've gone through, it just trumps the other three years of college that I've gone through, right? Like I'm supposed to study like how to raise a fund or raise capital for a business in school. Like, I've done that in a sense, right? I'm doing that, right? We raised 1.5 million. It's like, whoa, it's like, oh, what are these, what is it like to be in a top tech company? It's like, oh, I'm going to these Google headquarters now, right? And I'm watching how these people are like operating. And it's like, you don't learn more than when you're actually doing the thing, right? Like, I've started like Tejas Hullur LLC, my business as a content creator. It's like, I've understood now how to set up an LLC. I've understood how to do taxes. But that's like, that's why I think you live 4 years in one. You just have so many more experiences in the same amount of time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so was there a moment where you say, okay, I'm going to definitely drop out at this point?
I finished my junior year, and at this point, I had like 200,000 followers, and I was like, this, and I had my first brand deal, right? I'll tell this story. So I was like it was in April or May, and I've gotten like emails of like, hey, you want to support this NFT project and all this stuff, but then I get an email from an agency representing Venmo, PayPal, right? And I was like, Venmo, like VENMO, like the same one that's on my app right now that I just paid for my friend for Starbucks, right? And they were like, hey, we love your content. At the time, I was doing really financial content, right? And then they were like, we have this new campaign. We'd love for you to create content for it. And I was like, whoa, what? Right. And again, like this is like a month before school ended. So I was like, I didn't really know what I was doing over the summer. I didn't have an internship like every other kid in my business school. And so I was like, okay, like I guess this is the first stop of like making money on this app. And she asked me, she's like, so like, what's your rate? And I told her, I was like, I'll be honest with you. I said this straight up. I was like, I have no idea like how much I should charge for this. And in my head, I was like, it would be awesome if I could it's a 60-second video. If I can make like $200, right? $100. What am I talking about? Like $50. If I can make $50 from a video, that's crazy to me. And I was like, how about you start it off? Like I have no idea. And she goes, all right. I mean, I really don't want to be disrespectful or anything, but like, how about we start at 1,000? And I was like, what? $1,000? And like at the time I was like, yeah, 1,000 sounds great. How about we go to 1,500? I like tried to play it up. So we go, it's a $1,500 brand deal. At the time I had like $8,000 in a bank account that I've worked for the last 5 years. So I was like, this is nuts. This is the first time where I'm not really trading time for money. And that blew my mind. It was like what I've built so far is used as leverage to like ask for a larger price point, right? Or like it blew my mind. And so from there I was like, okay, like I'm gonna stop school. I'm gonna keep going. At the time too, I was meeting all these different companies in LA, these startups who were like, hey, like love your stuff, love to move you out to LA for 3 months.
Wow.
Right. It's actually Stir, this company, right? My mentor today, Joe Albanese, he's the CEO of Stir. He was like, look, I think what you're building is super cool. How about I pay for you to come to LA for 3 months, August until October. So that's supposed to be my first semester of senior year. Free trip to LA for 3 months. I'll take that instead. So yeah, that's kind of the decision process of not continuing. And then, I mean, now it's like I have a year lease in New York. Could I go back to school? I could, but like, this is kind of cooler.
With the first brand deal.
Yeah.
And that did that lead to the leverage video, or was the leverage video first that went absolutely viral?
No, the leverage video was in the summer. Because I was that definitely inspired it. That was like, I think it's like one of the biggest lessons to like learn to date, right? Understanding, I mean, so many people, especially in America, right? The way they think about money is by trading their time for it, right? And I think
why do you think that is?
It's how we grow up, right? Like that's how, I mean, the first job I ever got was hourly, meaning that like no matter how hard I try in that 1 hour, I'm gonna get the same rate, right? Which was $8 an hour, right? And I think it's, Naval says this all the time, right? It's like people have this misconception of input equals output, right? And that like he made the argument of like, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? He said, me and you, Joe, working 12 hours is making a lot more than the corner store guy working 12 hours, right? And like, I think it was the right time I listened to that. I just saw what happened to this Venmo, really like this brand deal. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is leverage.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And ever since I've been obsessed, right? I was like, that's how the rich get really rich. It's like they've leveraged something where people are willing to pay, not because of the time they're going to put into something, but because of something else, right? And for me, it's this catalog that I've created, this brand, this audience that I have.
That was episode 1309.
1309.
Of Joe Rogan and Naval. You've said you've listened to it
multiple times.
Many times.
Yeah, every single time I pick up something new. Yeah.
What about that episode in particular drew you in so much?
Naval is so articulate, and he even says this in that podcast, right? He goes, I think so many people memorize rather than truly understand, right? And it called me on. I was like, what does he mean? And then like, he's like, ask someone to explain something and most of the time they'll give you a memorized answer, right? But if you go far enough, they're not going to really they don't at the root of it, you don't really know what's going on, right? So at that point, I realized, like, going through school, I was like, I have so many of these memorized answers, right? Of like, oh, this is how, what is something like, this is how 2 hydrogen is attached to an oxygen, is because of these bonds, and like that's so memorized to me. But like physically, how does that work to create water?
Yeah.
H2O, right? And that, again, it just kind of like blows my mind. I think like listening to all these, I mean, there's a reason they're all thought leaders, right? Because they like all like literally blow my mind. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. I gotta like really think on that. And so 1309 from Joe Rogan with Naval Ravikant is one that every time I listen to him, like, that's a whole different perspective. And he put it in such a way, so articulate, that I'm like, that stuck with me.
You talk about yourself as a new creator and doing this for 2 years. You must get so many inputs, not only from content itself, but also people vying for your own attention and offers, and do this, should you do that? How do you go about making decisions when there's so much on your plate?
It's so funny you say this, because I was literally talking to Dylan about this like 2 hours ago.
Wow.
Yeah, right before this. I do want to say, like, I may sound like I know what I'm doing. We do this podcast in 1 month. I promise you, like, at least 10% of what I'm about, like this podcast, I'm gonna be like, I don't agree with that anymore, right? But that's part of the journey, right? I think I'm 21. I'm making every mistake you probably can in starting a business, but that's all right. But to your question, how many inputs? Let's start with content first, right? If you look at my content on TikTok, it really is unlike what the majority is, right? Like, I'm putting 3 hours in a video, right? Making it like kind of a production. Whereas a lot of people are taking their iPhone and they, whether it's a dance, whether it's a trend or whatnot. And the worst part of it all is they're getting, 10x likes, 10x views, right? And, I just said earlier, right? Like, I'm so concentrated on the quality of my viewers, but it'd be a lie if I said like, oh, the views don't hurt me at all, and things like that, especially when you put a lot of time and effort into something and it doesn't perform well. And so with that, I have people telling me, no, double down on that, right? Double down, put 6 hours in a video and only post twice a week, because like, if you make a good story and really concentrate on it, it'll perform. But on the flip side, right, I have people telling me, Tejas, like, you post 3 to 5 times a day, right? Just put those 3 hours into 3 videos. Right, see what happens. Right, you don't know. Like, throw as many darts on a dartboard and see which one hits bullseye. Right, and I mean, it's a whole spectrum of this advice of like, dive into 3 hours, go just 10 minutes into a video. Yeah. Right, and so that already, like, to this day, I'm still struggling with that. Right, and that's been something I've been struggling with for the last 1.5 years. Basically, I've never found the answer. I've been just making what felt right at the moment. So there's that. There's also different ways to run my business, right? I subscribe to the thought of like, hey, Tejas, you're young. Like, you should go and experiment with all these different things. Like, go to the Google headquarters, go do this, do like this consulting gig, do the Snapchat show, do whatever, right? But also, actually, Samir from Colin Samir, one of the best pieces of advice he's given me was like, Tejas, if you want to be a creator, then you need to like double down on being a creator, right? It's like, just don't rent so much of your time out to like these other opportunities. Like, you want to minimize time rented and maximize the equity in the Tejas Hullur brand, right? And so it's like, okay, now there's those things, right? It's like, yeah, decision making's hard. It's hard at the end of the day. I think right now, if I were to say like which route do I take, I'm taking the most risk tolerant route. Right. So is that the right way of saying that? Very aggressive, risk aggressive route. Right. So if I lose everything, like, that would hurt so bad. But I don't have a wife and I don't have kids and I don't have a mortgage to pay. So I'm like, I'll take that route. So when it comes to content, right, a lot of people are like, you're doing it wrong. But I'm trying to say, yeah, I don't have the typical TikTok content, but in the case that this content does work, then I could have just started a whole new branch of what short form content could look like. In that 1% chance, right? And with my business, right? It's like, to be the safest bet and to like maximize my cash flow, I should take all these consultation gigs. I should do this, but I really want to be a creator right now. And I like love making stories. in the 1% chance that works, I'll take that risk.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Okay, well, we have to circle back to stories.
Yeah.
Because you're incredible at that. But before we do,
Yeah.
you just mentioned, Samir from Colin and Samir is giving you advice.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Oh my
and a lot of people would pay a lot of money to just have that person in their ear. So how'd you get Samir to be your friend and consultant and mentor?
Oh my gosh. I've been a huge fan of those too. For so long. I mean, it's crazy. So going back to that time, Joe Albanese from Stir, again, he was like, hey, come to LA, right? Be your creator in residence, right? Help us with the business that they're building, right? And you can make your own content, right? And it's funny, as I was considering this, he was like, hey, do you know Colin and Samir? I was like, do I know Colin and Samir? What are you talking about, right? And he was like, yeah, we're moving offices and now we're going to be in the same office as Colin and Samir. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And like, I had all low expectations, right? I was like, yeah, if I see him once a month or whatever it is, like, that's fun. That's cool. Right. But I was such big fans of him. And I remember the first day I got to that office, I was just setting up like a desk or whatnot. And it was upstairs and the door was closed. And, I hear Colin and Samir's voice in that office. And I look at the window and I see Colin's blue publish hat. And I go back, I was like, oh no, oh my God. What's happening? So I slowly open the door. I'm just walking down, just like playing it super cool and casual. They were talking to one of the workers at Stir. And then somebody goes like, hey man, like what's going on with you? I was like, not much, just moved here, right? And again, they were just across the hall. So throughout the next 3 months, I would go there and just stop by, right? And see like what's up. Like I can tell they're like, when they're really busy, then I just head out. I'm not trying to bug them at all. But, at first, at our very first interactions was me going and I could tell that they were ideating on like titles and thumbnails, right? They were all sitting down and whenever I had a good idea, I'd just shout it out. I was like, oh, what if you changed it like this? I think that would be more attractive to me as a viewer of your content, right? I was like, this thumbnail, I think it's cool, but what if you did it this way? 90% of them, they shoot down. They're like, what do you like? But 10% of them, they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And again, I never asked them anything in return, right? It was similar back to that Dylan and Milad, that conversation, right?
Yeah.
Never asked Colin and Samir to be like, hey, can you be in my video? I did once, but after we were good friends. But in the beginning, I didn't want to ask them for anything because I found so much value in seeing how that production worked, right? I'm a one-man media production company, which is horrible sustainably. And like they've done such a successful job expanding their team and making an actual like sustainable process. And so I was like, I'm learning so much just being in this room. And I watched how they operate their business. And by the end of it, like I remember it was like October. I just asked Samir, I was like, Samir, like I'm about to leave. I would love if I could steal 20 minutes of your time. And he's like, let's go on a car ride. And like 20 of the most impactful minutes of my life. Yeah.
What happened?
It was that conversation where I told him, I was like, look, at the time, I was consulting Stir. I was their creator in residence. And the week before was a really tough week because Joe, again, another huge mentor of mine, basically told me, he goes, Tejas, like I see your potential, but so far what you've done with Stir has been pretty mediocre. He said that it hurts so bad, right? Because I'm an overachiever, like I've been an A kid, like a 4.0 GPA type of guy, right? Like I love to just, if there's an assignment in front of me, I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability. And to hear that I was doing mediocre work to the one person that was like, I'm gonna move you out to LA, right? And all this stuff. And Joe, for like listening to this, thank you for telling me that. I needed to be slapped a little bit there. And I was just like, shoot, like I want to do better, but like I've also had this commitment. I was running my own podcast at the time too, right? I was in works with the Snapchat show. I was just spreading my horses too thin. That was not a saying.
We can make it a saying.
Yeah, spreading my horses too thin, whatever that
the
means.
Horses were all over the place.
The horses were all over the place.
The Kentucky Derby.
I should have, right? And in that moment, Samir was like, well, what do you want to do, Tejas? It's like, do you want to be a creator? And he gave me a story where he was like, I wanted to be in front of the camera for so long. And at the time he was working at a larger production company, right? And he's like, I was the assistant editor, right? And I was working hard at that. And then one of these supervisor editors came up to him, Samir, and said, hey, Samir, what do you want to do? And Samir's like, I want to be in front of the camera. I want to make videos. And he goes, you're in the wrong seat. What you're in the seat for is to be a supervisor editor, right? It's for you to be like one of the best behind the scenes. But if you want to be in front of the camera, you go do that, right? And that's like best advice, because I sat down, I was like looking at all these different opportunities I could take, very blessed for all these opportunities, but I said, I gotta bet on myself and be a creator. So then first time in my life, like right now, is like 95% of my time goes to me and my abilities as a creator.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a difficult decision. I know personally, when I had told somebody I respect that I'm going to do a job and then I don't actually enjoy doing it because I enjoy doing the podcast or enjoy something else, it's like, it's very hard to make that decision. For me, it cost me, I would say, like a month of depression, of like really going inward and like being upset at myself, like not being able to fulfill a duty that somebody else had for me.
Yeah.
So was it the similar thing for you where you're like, you went into a negative funk? And if so, how do you get out of it, or how do you not get into a funk?
Yeah. I mean, I would expand that a little bit and say like this journey as like now a full-time content creator, a one-man media production company. It's my fancy way of saying TikToker.
I love it.
Yeah. Is like the highs are so high, right? You go to the Grammys, you're meeting Mike Tyson, right? I just went to Formula One in Miami, right? But the lows get really low. And I actually just like, I took a 1 week break from content right before this, because I like, was mentally not doing too well, right? And even still, I'm climbing myself out of it, right? I'm starting to create again, but yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. I think when you do really well on social media, your benchmark of what like well is just gets higher and higher. And like, it's always going to be peaks and valleys, right? You're never going to be viral 100% of the time. Yeah. You're never going to have that hype 100% of the time. So it's like, who are you when you don't have as much momentum, right? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah. I would say like I'm in a point in my social media journey where like I need to pivot a little bit. I need to innovate my content a little bit, because right now the attention and the points that I'm making are not hitting like I want them to, right? And my audience, I can tell, is resonating with that. And so how do I get out of the funk? I take breaks long enough until I just become so inspired to create again. So that break I took, luckily I had a friend who's another creator come by, and he also wanted a break. So we were walking Central Park, just going to coffee shops, a lot of journaling, just in my own thoughts. And I woke up one day and I was like, just had this drive, that same drive I had to just create again. And so it's like, okay, this is the time. Like, let me make this idea, right? If this idea does well, great. If it doesn't, I guess I'll take another break and then just like journal about that, really reflect. Yeah, it's all about feedback loops, right? So I make something, evaluate it, adjust, go again.
Have there been any impactful practices you've had that have allowed you to get into a more creative state?
Ooh, I've deleted all the social media off my phone. The only way I view it is on my iPad, which doesn't have cellular data. And like, I don't take it with me anywhere really. You remember that dinner we did, right? I didn't have Instagram. You were like, hey, like this is my Instagram. I was like, oh shoot, I gotta wait till I go home and like on my iPad to look it up, right? At that networking event. Yeah, I've noticed direct correlation. If I wake up and I consume content, because that's like, I mean, I wake up and if I do have it accessible to me, I'll scroll. Yeah. Destroys my creativity. Right. And it's because I've just sent my content doesn't fit on TikTok. And so when I consume 100 TikTok videos of, people doing trends and just, I don't mean mindless in a very, like in a negative sense, but entertaining content while I'm an educator and I try to make deeper content, I feel so out of place. Imposter syndrome, right? I don't feel right. So I noticed the days that I consume in the morning are the days I feel the worst. So I've stopped consuming first thing in the morning. I've stopped making it easy for me to consume content, right? And that's number one thing that's really helped.
Yeah. What made you decide to want to have deeper, more educational content versus it's easier to create entertaining content that's more vapid?
Yeah. I like to say if someone was like, Tejas, I'll give you $100,000 if you can make a TikTok account go from 0 to 1 million subscribers in 6 months. Like I can do it. Like I know how to like make a viral account, right? But there's like, it's a mix of things why I do what I do. I think one is like the small audience that does care, right? And small is relative, right? Of like the deep kind of connection content. It's like there's no better feeling than to get your message resonating with someone.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Right. And then two, it's like, again, it goes back to the quality of an audience, right? It's like the emails that I get from people who are mentors of mine today and like people that are a lot smarter and cooler than I am that are like, I like what you're doing, right? Is assuring. And then like superficially, right? I've never reached out for a brand deal, right? I like never once. It's like all these brands have reached out to me because they're like, you're on the right path. So I know on a business sense, I'm like, I found an area that is correct, right? The day that I have to start pitching myself and convincing people that like, this is right, like what I'm doing. But like people are already seeing that content market fit.
That makes sense. And so now I think we got to transition to some of the crazy highs of the journey.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So rank the 3 events that we spoke about.
Man.
Smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
Grammys, and going to Formula One for free or sponsored.
Yeah.
What was the top of that list?
Smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What happened?
So this was a sponsored event, right? And this was a company that was working with they produced Mike Tyson's podcast, Hot Boxing. Right, the Hot Boxing podcast, and it was a Super Bowl event. So I got an invite. It's like, hey, this is a trip to a Super Bowl. It's going to be in this mansion. It's a Super Bowl watch party in LA. I was like, all right, cool. Like, sounds good. Like, this sounds like a great thing to talk about and to make videos about. And when I got there, right, Mike Tyson, Daniel Cormier, the UFC fighter, Brandon Schaub, the comedian, and Brandon Marshall, which is a wide receiver for, I know him from the Chicago Bears as someone from the suburbs of Chicago. We're all live streaming and just doing the reactions of the Super Bowl. And one of their producers of that show came up to me and goes like, hey, the show's doing well and all, but like, we want some interesting segments. And like, they were just looking around at this party and I was like, who's willing to go on there and just like create a show? Right. And, I'll be honest, I was a couple drinks in, right? And I was like, I'll do it. Like, screw it. Like, give me airtime. And I had this whole thing of like, I had all these random fun facts. And this is going to be fun. It's like how many chicken wings are eaten on Super Bowl day and like how many, I just all these random fun facts. And it was like chicken wings, like 1.4 billion chicken wings are eaten on that day. So I was like, none of them are going to guess it. It's good, funny banter. It's going to create like, they're all going to fight about it. And like, so he gives me the mic on the live stream, right? And I start.
Mike does? Or
the producer does, right? Yeah. And I'm talking to all of them. And I start off the whole thing and I was like, hi, my name is Tejas. I'm a TikToker. And I'll be honest, I'm a couple drinks in right now. I don't know what Daniel Cormier and Brandon Marshall were saying to each other about it, but all of a sudden, Brandon Marshall physically picks me up and just like tackles me, right? And I was like, what is going on? Broke the ice. Like I was nervous, but I was like, all right, we're all cool now. Right. And so, that was he like tossed me around. I mean, I was like, what is going on? And so I started and I was like, all right, I have a couple questions for you guys. And whoever's closest gets a prize. I don't have a prize. Right. I just said that. And I said, like how many chicken wings are eaten on Super Bowl day? And Mike Tyson goes, I don't give a fuck. And I was like, oh, okay. The other 3 were talking. And then I said my second question. I forgot what I said. And Mike's like, I don't give a fuck. He just kept saying it. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm just sitting talking to them. And then Brandon Marshall goes, hey, you should, this is Mike Tyson's weed company, Toad. Right? It's like, talk about it. I was like, I looked at it and I was like, all right, well, buy Toad. Right? I'm like, I don't know. I guess you got a free promo out of me. Right? It's like, that's cool. And then Mike picks up a pre-roll that he had on the thing and he goes, smoke this. I was like, I can't do too much because I get really like paranoid on weed and it's a party going on right now, right? And I was like, okay. But I was like, sure. And then he lights it up for me. And I was like, I guess I've taken a hit. So I take like 2 hits of it, right? I tried passing it around, things like that. And I tried to give it back to Mike and he goes, take another hit. I was like, oh my God. This is so scary. And so I did. And I was really high and then passed it to Mike Tyson. And I was like, this is crazy to me. Right? Like, what am I doing right now? And yeah, and later that day at that party, there was a tattoo artist there. And so I got the letters ISABWMT tattooed on my hand again. No regrets yet, but I was a little intoxicated doing this. But it stands for I smoked a blunt with Mike Tyson. So it's on my arm, on my arm for people for the rest of my life. So yeah,
It was crazy because you went from in the fraternity house to Mike Tyson's house or with Mike Tyson. Like, how does that get reacted to from the college friends and
people that didn't talk to me? Right? So I mean, look, I would have done the same if I was on another seat. I'm just grateful that, like, you know, I'm fortunate where, like, I am a networker to where I have a lot of different connections, but I have a really close friend group. Right? I really only have like one or two friends from college to this day, right? And it's funny, like, he's one of my closest friends. I'm like flying to Nashville. He lives in the Nashville area. Cam, shout out Cam. He's like one of my closest friends. He's so giving, and I know at the end of the day, like, he's gonna be a brother for life. And like, knowing that, I could care less what other people from college think, right? Everyone has their own opinions. Everyone, like, I think everyone makes a face at college, like you're trying to like be like, my life is stable and like I have a job set up and I have like, it's all, but everyone is, you know, struggling right at the end of the day. And if someone's gonna hate on me or like be like, dude, you're an embarrassment to the fraternity, it's like they're dealing with their own things. It's like I'm living the coolest life.
Still getting hate though to this day?
No, I don't talk to kids in my fraternity anymore. I've completely separated from that. Yeah, which is crazy because if you talk to me sophomore year, like when I was the president, 50 hours of my week would go into that house, right? That was like, I'm pretty obsessive. I have a pretty obsessive personality. And like to make that house governed correctly was like the top of my mind. And now it's like content. Like I don't think about it at all, which is kind of crazy. Yeah.
What makes you and that one friend you have so close, and like why do you think that's going to be a brotherhood for life?
Yeah. It's funny. I think we share a lot of the same values. He's a very giving guy too. And that's one thing that I found so impressive, right? Whether it's like giving to his friends and not just like money or time, whatever it is. He's just so caring for other people when he doesn't have to be, right? And he's been that for me to the point where now it's like, hey, that Super Bowl party with Mike Tyson, I paid for his trip to go there too, right? Like I paid for his trip to come to Formula One in Miami, right? And I just know like he's gonna return it. He told me, he's like, he knew I was having a hard time here, and he's like, come to Nashville, like spend a week in Nashville, like away from the city, right? Like we'll go on walks in like these forests in like Tennessee, and like we'll have a no phone day. We're gonna just disconnect. And he's so caring with everything, and that his mom's my accountant now, so
gotta keep him close.
Yeah, right. So I love the guy. He's amazing. So I don't know. It just calls me every day, make sure I'm good. I make sure he's good, right? So yeah,
that's beautiful. How much does the highs that you've experienced impact the lows of feeling like, well, I'm not smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson right now, so do I have to feel bad about my existence? Like, does that ever happen?
I think in a secondary form, yes. What I think constitutes a high and a low, it's all about like just feeling the momentum you currently have online, right? And so what I mean by it's secondary, it's like obviously when I was there with Mike Tyson, I was like, my Instagram was popping off, right?
You were the coolest kid online.
Exactly, right? And so like that momentum was there, but also that was a cool event, but it was not a part of the brand that I'm trying to create. So I kind of discounted it. It was like, it's cool, it's flashy, got me in the news, right? I'm sorry, not news. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it got me on their podcast like platform. Like that was cool, but it's also not the brand that I'm creating. Right. Like I much rather if that got like 5 million views, I'd rather get 50,000 views on something that was like a lot more connected to me, the brand that I'm trying to create. That's a win.
Yeah.
Right. And so whenever I'm feeling a low, it's more about like, oh man, the momentum that is just drying off right now. It's like coming to not a halt, I think, but it's slowing down. And that's when you're like, oh, it's scary. It's just like a feeling you have. It's never one video. It's never one thing. It's like, Oh, for the past 2 weeks, I feel like the messages that I'm throwing out there are not being received to the magnitude that it once was. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
How do I deal with that? I think it's a great question. How do I deal with that? You tell me. How should I deal with that? I need to figure that out. That's a golden question. If I figure that out, I can I mean the answer that I'll give is like I am throwing as many darts at a dartboard until one like resonates, and then I'll dive into that dive into that more. Like right now I'm doing a series on my account just calling out the dark side of social media fame, right? And I talked about a couple, right? Like this house in LA that I actually stayed at called Clubhouse Beverly Hills, right? It was a content house. But it was so shady, right? And and I talked about my experience there, but also the finances of it. And they're publicly traded, weirdly enough. They went from like whatever market had, they were like, each stock was like $16 and now it's at 10 cents, right? Like they completely crashed. Like their CEO's in a lot of hot water with relations and like ruining the mental health of like 15-year-olds, like TikTokers, like all this stuff, right? And it's like just stories that like, you have to be in the industry to know. So I was like, this is cool. Like, let me like reveal them. Right. I'm doing one. It's about to come out about a YouTuber who is like, he's eating so much for views, but it's like, he's literally killing himself.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you know the name of Nico Cotto Avocado. Right. And it's like, it's horrible. But like his whole career is him getting views. And the way he gets views is by eating like 15,000 calories a day in a meal. Right. And he does multiple of these a day. Right. It's like, that's so sad. So it's like, I take these, I'm like, is this sticking? Is this resonating with an audience? Is the message there? Okay, kind of. Okay, let me do a couple more. If it's not, all right, what's the next thing I could pivot to?
Okay. So the dark side of social media is going to naturally make you feel dark.
Yeah.
Your attention and focus is on the dark and the things that go wrong.
Yeah.
Have you considered doing a light side of social media?
It's unfortunate because I think it relates to like the idea of like loss aversion. It's like people just relate to negatives. Not relate. I think people are more interested in negative stories than they are any sort of positive stories of the same magnitude, right? So it's like, it's just not as interesting to say like, here are the good things about social media, right? Versus like, here's the dark side or like the light side of social media.
But there are ways to do it.
There's ways to do it.
Like
Totally.
Colin and Samir, for example, have focused a lot on the light of great creators
of course.
And how they've achieved success.
Yeah.
So it is possible.
It is possible. Yeah.
The news predicates on telling stories about negative events.
Totally.
It's easier to get clicks that way.
Of course.
But
good point.
But you spoke about how you don't really care about getting clicks as much as you care about how it makes people feel.
Totally.
And so maybe a focus more on the light could,
I think,
could also help your own mental health.
A variable there is the beauty and curse of the For You page or algorithms that choose content for you is that the beauty is like discoverability. There's no better top of the funnel in social media today than that. The curse is though is like you have no insurance in terms of like if you waste a word in a short form piece of content, like your competition's a swipe up until the next dopamine hit, right? And so it's like for Colin and Samir when they're shedding the light side, right? It's like they have the liberty and the insurance to make a 15-20 minute video about it, right? But I'm not making excuses. I think there's a way. There is a way, 100%. Yeah. There's always a way to tell a good story. But right now I am taking the low hanging fruit of like, it's just much more attractive in a 60-second blog to make like, to show the visual of like what was once a 150-pound guy that was like healthy, now is 300 pounds, right? It's unfortunate to say, right? But you're right. I don't feel the best about that series, right? But it's kind of the one that I'm researching at the moment. It's also, I'm in the process of hiring an editor right now, and it's like kind of the most low-hanging fruit to get that process down. So there's all these different variables to like why I do what I do. Yeah.
So with the editor, was that something that was difficult for you to outsource because you're such a good editor yourself?
Oh, I appreciate that. I actually don't think I'm a great editor, which we can get into, but yeah, it's tough. I mean, we've done one edit so far. It's very new, right? It's like something I put on an Instagram story like 2 weeks ago, and this person has been so proactive, right? In responding, like I didn't even know how well they edited. I just knew the way they've been communicating with me has been amazing. They've just like always on top of things, followed up when I forget things. And I was like, this is like something that I haven't found with anyone else. Right. Her name's Liz. Shout out Liz. Right.
What does Liz do in particular? Because a lot of people
Yeah.
might be in that position of wanting to work with their favorite creator.
Yeah. I think one is she's coming to me with ideas, which is like similar to what like I did with Dylan and Milad. It's like you want to give content creators content, right? So she comes with me with ideas. She goes, hey, right now at a time where I'm trying to pivot, right? The way you pivot is by stealing like an artist, right? I'm sure you know that term of like, it's hard to just pluck an idea out of thin air, right? So right now, like we're going through a lot of accounts that inspire us, right? And she gives me accounts. I'm like, this is reputable. Like this is really cool. She recently just sent me a scene in Euphoria, right? And like, I like to take things from traditional media, right? Because you don't see it on TikTok a lot. And I was like, okay, the way that she thinks about things is really interesting, right? The way that communication is the basis of any sort of healthy partnership relationship, right? And she's giving me updates whenever like, she's like, I think it's good when she told me, she's like, hey, I hope you know, like I'm taking a trip in 2 weeks for 3 days. I was like, oh, I expected you to tell me 2 days before, but thank you for telling me that now. That's so proactive. Yeah. Proactive. Like it's unbelievable. So I was like, let's work together. And of course there's, with any sort of creative field to hire someone, it's not going to be easy. Colin Samir said it took them 6 to 9 months to like really get on the same voice as their editor.
Wow.
Right. So I'm fully expecting that. So yeah, but it's necessary to have an editor.
Yeah, and you have such a business mind too, where you're more focused on the business side of things, but at the same time, you're also really creative as well. So it's like, how would you, if there was 100%, 50% business, 50% creative, like how would you put the percentage wise in your own head of like
in my like perfect reality?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a great question. Oh man, I'll answer that in terms of who's the perfect team for me, because I think that's indirectly gonna answer that question, right? I think in terms of like what percentage business versus like creative do I want to play? I think ideally I want to play more creative than business, but I'm so business minded than creatively minded.
Wow.
Maybe that's like relative. I'll say this, going back to your point about being a good editor. The reason I don't think so is because I'm friends with like amazing editors, right? And so my anchor is here with that, and I'm like here, right? But I get comments all the time like, your edits are great, like the way you storytell is great. I'm like, no, you should check out these guys, right? And so like I tend to do more business than I do creative. So that's why I was like, if I was to hire, I would hire an editor. Right. But I think I'd hire like a CEO of the business, and then me being like the chief director or like the producer of my content. I think that would be the most fun for me.
Interesting. When you go about talking about people, it's so often in the context of, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
You say, oh, this person's got 10 million followers and I'm friends with them. I'm in this group chat with a bunch of people with 1 million followers. I don't know why I'm there. This person's a greater editor than me. It's a common theme in how you speak.
Oh, wow.
And
oh my gosh.
And so
that's scary. You're good. You're good at your job.
Thank you. Man. So where did that belief stem from? Or where does it stem from?
I think it started off as an insecurity, but now has transformed as a branding point. So when I look at I think one of the most valuable things for any content creator to do is to really define your audience. That's step one. So when I think about my audience, I go early entrepreneurs looking to scale, right? Creators fit into that. Creators are entrepreneurs, but also early 20-year-olds looking for direction, right? And it's like I'm playing these two. And so for like, let's talk about Colin Samir, right? Because I do get compared with Colin and Samir a lot, right? I look at them as my mentors, right? As we all do, right? Like I think Rolling Stones recently called them the elder statesmen, right? The nice way of saying the old guys in the space, right? They're writing the textbook for the creator economy. We have a very vertical relationship with them. They're our mentors. We're their mentees. For me, it's like I'm in the same space. I want to talk about the same things, but I want to be your peer, right? I want to be like a horizontal relationship. We're on the same level, right? So it's like I'm not there yet. right? But I want to talk about that. I want to be very like transparent about that. It's like, you look at like I'm meeting this person, but here's a huge mistake that I made this month, and let me be very transparent about that. And it's like, here's a lesson I've learned. I hope you can learn the same, right? And so the two audience, right? I said I'm like early entrepreneurs are going to scale, right? I want to be that informative guide because I'm put in this position of meeting all these amazing people, but I also want to be your comforting peer, right? And so like I know a lot of people facing the insecurities that I do. Right. And it's like, and instead of just hiding it and being like, yeah, it's, I'm working on it. It's like, how about I make content about it? And I get a lot of comments like, I really appreciate how transparent and honest you are in these videos. And it's like, okay, like I don't like watching myself like on camera doing it, but like, I like talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's funny when you said in the very beginning, it's like, I was watching your old content. Like, that's why I don't watch my old content, because I'm like, this is so cringy. Like, I don't like it. But like, I do appreciate that I did do that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how you mentioned wanting to be a peer and on the same level.
Yeah.
But Fortune magazine called you the Tony Robbins for the creator economy. Tony Robbins, I think of it as a mentor. So how did that feel? And to be mentioned, and what was that article?
Blessing. I'm in a Fortune magazine article. Like, that's amazing. So crazy. Cool. I'll connect back to like what I said is like we have this podcast in 1 month, and a lot of the answers that I'm going to have are probably going to change, right? In the same way, like I thought of myself as a thought leader at that time. I was like, I'm going to be the next Colin Samir, right? And I'm going to be this talking head person. Whereas like now I'm like, that was cool thinking, Tejas. Like that was cool. Like, and maybe that is the right answer, but right now I'm like, I rather be that peer. So like there's that. I love that article. Being called a Tony Robbins, I do think is a little incorrect. Right. If I were to compare myself, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
If I were to compare myself,
how would you rephrase that analogy today?
I think I would. Man, who would it be? Who's someone that's like building a business but taking them step by step throughout the way, sharing like problems that they've done.
A lot of YouTubers do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the fitness world, but Nick Bear is somebody who was incredible at building a business and showing the world. I'm in the army right now, and then I'm ordering the first supplements, and now he's got this huge gym facility.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And really built up. And he's a massive creator. And this is what's so cool about the creator economy in general and people who are creators. It's so niche specific in that Nick Bear is huge. Yeah. And if I say Nick Bear to a lot of people, they're going to be like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But you didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And which is amazing in a way. Like when Elliot Choi walks into the dinner, I'm freaking out joking. But it's like a lot of people will walk by Elliot Choi today and be like, who is that?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing in that people can have massive audiences, but also be unrecognizable to another segment of the population.
Yeah, I think that's where this creator economy is going towards, right? Like, you talk to anyone ultra famous, and they're like, "This sucks," right? But it's like the coolest thing when you're like everyone wants to be appreciated, right? It's like, and so when people know who you are, I think that's a great aspect. But like, I want to be able to walk the streets in New York City without being like, "Oh my God," right?
Have you gotten recognized?
Yeah.
What is that like?
It's so cool. It's kind of scary because it's one of those things where they know a lot about you and you don't really know anything about them. So it's like, I saw you just did this with someone. I'm like, how are you doing? Like, what do you do? It's like just so weird levels of communication, but craziest feeling. It's one of those things where I remember sitting at the the Miami Dolphins stadium, and I was like, how many people like sit in the stadium right now? It's like 60,000. I'm like, wait, that's like the views I get on a TikTok.
This is what I'm on right now. I'm on the stadium, and everyone's watching me.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you don't realize like these numbers that you're just so you just like kind of throw around. You're like, oh, 60K, damn, that's not great. It's like, oh, I only got 15K views on this. It's like, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, that's 15,000 people that like watched and like saw a message that I put out in the world, and like that doesn't hit until you get recognized, I feel.
Yeah. I saw a text exchange you had with a friend where you were saying, the friend was saying, I'm only getting 17 views or something like that. And you were like, take time. Like that's 17 people who are taking time out of their day.
Yeah. Especially on YouTube, right? I always like all these YouTube creators who who make long form content. It's like I look up to them so much because the relationship that they have with their audience is the audience could be doing anything in that time, right? So like take a 10-minute Elliot Choi video, right? Especially where it's him going throughout his day. He's got 250,000+ people that are like, in the next 10 minutes, I want to dedicate it to this video. I could do anything else, right? I could do things relatively more fun or whatever it is, like, but I'm gonna like out of the 10 minutes that I have in my day, I'm gonna click on this video. Right? And I think that's crazy. It's so special.
So we said we'd circle back to storytelling.
Yes.
And you have maybe the most succinct and beautiful way that I've ever heard anyone say about how to tell a story. And when you said it in a podcast that I was listening to research this one, I was like, oh, wow, that changes everything.
Oh my gosh. What did I say?
Build up tension.
Oh, yeah.
And release it.
Yeah.
So simple, so profound, and build up tension and release it. That's a story in a nutshell. How did you come up with that, and what does that mean exactly?
Wow, great question. Dude, you do such good research. This is like, you're like reminding me what I've said in the world too, which is crazy. Storytelling is everything. I think it's like the only reason anyone's interested in anything. I'm pretty sure I said that verbatim in a TikTok video. But it's like any relationship that you have, any content you consume, it's all because of like the story underlying it, right? And so when I learned about this concept, I think there's a Casey Neistat video about exactly this, right? Where he's like, I think the title of it is like how to make a vlog like Casey Neistat. And he goes about talking about the simple way to tell a story is always it's a 3-act system, right? So act 1 is like setting the situation. Act 2 is revealing a problem. And act 3 is showing the solution. But you think you take any sort of story or like movie or whatever it is, and it always follows this format, right? You can get into more specifics, like there's the hero's journey, right? There's many different like arcs you can go. And that's like the 3 acts is great, but I was like, can I simplify this anymore? Right? And like I was like, all right, 3 steps, let's go to 2, right? I think it's really just you build up tension, you release it, right? It's like what's an example? Right? We talk about Elliot Choi, right? Elliot Choi, what he does, right? The tension that he's building up right now is like he's a 23-year-old in New York City building a business, right? The tension is he going to succeed? Is he going to fail?
That's from the macro level.
Very macro.
So like on the micro level, he's probably doing that in every video he puts out as well.
Yeah. I think the beauty of social media is like each piece of content is just a jigsaw puzzle in the bigger picture, which is the tension release. So
what tension are you building in your own life right now from the macro level of why somebody should follow you?
That's it. Similar story to that. It's like I'm this kid in this newcome creator economy. I can't read a textbook about it, right? Like how to be successful in this creator economy. It's so new, right? Like if I want to be a successful accountant, right, I can find 13 editions to how to do that, right? I'm taking probably the most risk that I probably can take at the moment, right? Moving to the most expensive city in America, right? Without any sustainable income, really. I can make $10,000 one month. I can make zero another, right? So that's overlooming me. And I have this dream to be a full-time storyteller and build businesses underneath that. And so the tension is, am I going to succeed or am I going to fail?
I'd follow that guy.
Yeah, right. And throughout it, it's like I'm trying to share the process, right? You've inspired me to make a video about kind of the mental health aspect that I'm going through, the pivoting that I'm going through. I'm definitely going to make a video about that. I think that's like when I think about that overarching story of like who is Tejas Hullur, what is he trying to say? That's such an integral part. So that's a jigsaw puzzle that I'm going to put in my 10,000 piece picture of who Tejas Hullur is, right? That's it. It's any movie you watch. That's it. Forrest Gump. I recently just rewatched it again, and again, one of the best movies of all time, right? It's like, it's really just tension release. It's like, is Tom Hanks or Forrest Gump? There's many of them, right? Is he gonna get with Jenny, or is he not? right? He's obviously he has some mental disability in the show. Is he going to overcome that in any of these situations, right? Oh my gosh, he's in Vietnam right now, right? Is he going to survive? Is he not? Right? Tension. Oh, he survived it. Release. Right. And that's what hooks people, right? Everyone wants to feel something, and it's all through tension and release.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny you talk about there's no textbook
Mm.
for the creator economy, because it really hit me when I started looking into NFTs. I was like, it's funny, you can't buy a book about how to buy an NFT or what an NFT is. And if you can't buy a book about something, that lets you know you're on the cutting edge of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. You're right. Where do I go if I just want to look up how to become a successful social media creator? You'll find 10,000 videos of how to be a successful YouTuber. That's different than how to be a successful TikToker. But I mean, especially in this space, everyone's success is conditional on their own experience. Meaning that you ask Charlie D'Amelio how you become successful, she'll give you a completely different answer than Ali Abdaal, who'll give you a completely different answer than Colin and Samir. Maybe not. They're two kind of similar, but who'll give you a completely different answer than David Dobrik, right? So it's whoever you ask for advice only knows success through how they've gotten it.
Yeah, it's a great point. But you've made also the idea that every creator has 4 things in common, which is passion, consistency, perseverance, and innovation.
Yeah, that's my. Those are my 4 variables to 100% success on social media. So I guess I'm completely contradicting what I just said 10 seconds ago.
But it's great that you've found a formula.
It's a clickbaity way of saying what I've noticed in the space, whenever a creator is having trouble, including myself, over the last 2 weeks, is always because of one of these 4 variables, and it just gives you a nice visual of okay, which one of these 4 am I struggling with at the moment? Am I creating right now what I'm passionate about? 100%. That's no question there. Am I being consistent? Not as consistent as I should be, right? But I got to keep posting more, right? I gotta post at whatever cadence. It doesn't have to be once a day. It doesn't have to be once a week. But keep it something consistent that you can, again, feedback loops, right? If I post once a week for 10 weeks, I'll have something to measure. I'll have 10 weeks worth of data to measure and make my next decision, right? That's where consistency comes from. Perseverance. Am I persevering right now? Yeah, things suck right now, but I'm going to be a content creator as long as I don't give up. That's not the problem. What's the last one? Innovation. Oh, I've been making the same content in the same style for the last 3 months. Is it getting old with people? I think so. I think that's my problem. Okay. That's now giving me the direction to how can I change things up a bit? Who can I steal an artist from? How can I? So it's really just a clickbaity way of saying here, if you're struggling, here's the first step to taking the direction you need to figure out how to change if you need to.
When you do these videos, and you mentioned it being in a clickbaity way, how much of it do you script out before you voice over or before you film it itself?
Yeah,
how much
all of it.
All of it's scripted?
All of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that process look like from idea to creation to posting?
Yeah, I think, right, I revealed to you the idea that I want to create of something about this pivot that I'm currently taking and what it's like. I want to say every idea that I try to create about, I need to make it as concrete and concise as possible in one sentence. So this idea is not a good idea yet because I couldn't tell it to you in one sentence, right? What the idea is. This YouTuber is killing himself for views. Oh, that's that means I can relate in 60 seconds. I can expand on it. That's a good idea, right? So yeah, once I get the idea, right, take the YouTuber's killing himself for views. That one is different because I'm writing the script and the voiceover first and then adding the visual to it. A lot of my videos are a lot of spontaneous filming. So I'll record a bunch of videos and then in later craft the script and then match it up, right? But for this one, I put a lot of research into who this guy is, right? And then I was I wrote what I thought was good, let it sit for an hour. I'm this part's slow, this part's not interesting, take it out. This part I could make it more impactful. I'll give it someone else to read, right? And just try to get as much data to what can be the most successful script and then go from there. But for the spontaneous videos, if I'm the Super Bowl party with Mike Tyson. Unfortunately, TikTok took that video down.
Really?
Yeah. of
Why?
course. Weed.
Oh.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of footage, right? And I was scrolling through this footage, just scrubbing through it, and I'm like, what's the concise way of telling a story with this footage? So then, yeah, everything's scripted though. Everything is 100% voiced overed. Yeah.
Do you think that there's people that are out there who don't know that it's scripted and are comparing their unscripted videos to your scripted videos?
Oh, I've never thought about it like that. I think so. I think the way that I voice over, I feel like I've mastered it to the point where it doesn't sound scripted.
It doesn't.
Okay, cool. So thank you. That sounds great. Yeah, I think that's a problem. I should probably tell people that I'm scripting everything. It could be. Yeah. I would say this to anyone who's like mostly a consumer trying to be a creator. Anything that like most creators that I know have scripted or at least pre-productioned 99% of things. The things that you don't think are like things that you think are spontaneous and in the moment, like chances are they're not.
Wow.
Most things are rather not, right? There's a lot of work that goes into the videos that seem simplest, right?
Huh. Yeah, that makes
sense?
sense. Yeah, it does make
Okay,
sense,
cool.
but it's like breaking the glass
Yeah.
wall for the
It's like when you
consumer.
learn how a magic trick works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the ways you did a magic trick was by scripting the video or filming the video of you with your grandpa. It was incredible. Everyone, I'll link it down below. The video is so phenomenal. It just pulled at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
Your grandpa leaving, going back to India.
Yeah.
Like how did you create that, and what goes through your mind today when you think about that video?
Yeah. So that video is at the surface level, it's just a vlog of me and my grandpa going to the mall, right? On like the last day before he was going back to India. And, my grandpa and grandma are getting at that age where it's like, hey, they went to India. When are they going to come back? Because I've had this cadence since I was, 5, 6 years old where I would see my grandpa once a year. He'd come back to America, right? Or I'd go to India or something like that. But the conversations were being had of like, especially my grandma is getting to that age where it's like, it's hard for her to take a 14-hour indirect flight from South India to Chicago, right? And so I was making that vlog and it was the last day and I'm finally like, this is a whole nother topic, but I'm a lot closer to my parents and grandparents now. I was never like that growing up. It was not until I went to college and I was like, holy crap, like that time is really valuable. And so, I made that vlog. I knew in that vlog that the voiceover was going to be something about like, is there a way to prepare for someone's death? Right? It's like, I'm very conscious that I will get a call one day, right? Saying like, hey, I hate to break you the news, but your grandpa's passed away, right? Like that call is inevitably coming, right? So it's like, if I know it's coming and I know it's going to really hurt, right? That day, that call, is there a way for me to prepare for that? Right. And I texted a couple of people that, and, no one really had an answer for it. And I was like, okay, that's a really interesting concept. Yeah, that video is one I didn't promote anywhere, right? I simply posted it. I didn't really want to promote it, right? I was like one of those things where it's like the fans that are super fans of mine, that's the gift to them. Thank you. Thank you.
That's me.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know why I didn't promote it. Maybe I should have, but I'm looking, it's one of those videos where it'll come across my mind in a year, 2 years, maybe a month from now, maybe when that day comes, then I'm going to be like, I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy I made this video.
I always thought about having a conversation and recording it. As a podcaster, that's what I do, have conversations. For you, it makes sense. Create a vlog, and it's just another way to have a memory for people you really care about. And it's like, could you create a vlog for your parents, siblings? Like, it just makes me think of there's so many possibilities to just keep people. We appreciate people so much when they pass away, but can you think like that today, even if they're still with us?
Exactly. What's your answer to that? Can you prepare for someone's death? A close family friend?
Yeah, I've been preparing mentally for my grandparents to die for a long time, like for at least like 3 years. And it's made every time I spend with them, every moment, so precious. They don't look like they're gonna die anytime soon.
Yeah.
They're in their 80s. They're walking around. They're doing great things. They're sharp as could be.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, I'm always saying like, this could be the last time I ever see them. And they're not even like close to, like, it doesn't look like that from the outside.
Same.
But I just know, and it makes me more appreciative. And
Yeah.
I record conversations, and I make sure to really be there.
Yeah.
But it's like, could we do that with our friends? Could we do that? Because
you
who
never
knows?
You never know.
Who knows?
Yeah. 100%.
So you said on March 13th, I believe, I often look back and say, wow, I was a dick to my parents.
Yeah. Well, where did I say that again?
You tweeted it.
I did tweet it. Okay, yes. In literally until I went to college, which is funny that I was in college like last year. Like my freshman year of college. I got to that age like 18, 19 where I started finally like living by myself, where I was like, "Oh, that's why they told me not to do that." Like, "Oh, that's why they did this to me." Right? Or this is why they gave me this hard time. Right? And it wasn't until that realization where I was like, okay, everything's clicking. Like the way I treated my parents in those moments, I'm like, how, like, I would have like smacked myself, right? If like they had so much patience with me, and they waited 18 years basically for me to have this moment, and now we like talk about those moments, and like I'm like, in a similar sense of what you just said, it's like, why I was never close with them. Right? I wouldn't tell them anything. I wouldn't really tell them who my friends were. I wouldn't tell them like what my thoughts were. I would be like, and hey, Tejas, how was school? Good, bye. Like, it got to a point my senior year of high school where my dad confronted me and he goes, Tejas, you use this house as a place to eat and sleep. You don't talk to us. You don't hang out with us. You're rarely here. And so, yeah, it was not any one moment that I had with my parents where I was like I was a straight up dick, but it was just like the culmination of my young adulthood, right before college, where I was like, damn, I made no effort to get to know them. It's funny, I didn't even really know what college they went to until like 2 years ago, right? I didn't know their childhood. Like, I made no effort really to like get to know them, because I was like, I always thought of them as like a nuisance. That's why I was like, I was such a dick to them.
What changed exactly?
It was that moment of like, I was no longer a kid. I was an adult having to make like, college is kind of fake adulthood. It's like baby steps into adulthood. But like, I'd have moments where, for example, your parents I would sneak out a lot, and I was much bigger of a partier. And there was a night in college in high school, I would drink a good bit, but there was a night in college where I drank way too much. Right. And, you always hear your parents saying like, don't drink, don't like stop. Like, what are you doing? Like, even when I had a beer with my parents at home, they used to like, stop that. I'm like, what's your problem? Like, I'm not going to get drunk off of one beer, right? All this stuff. But it's like that mindset that I had, that was the problem. And so like, when I was in college, 4.5 hours away from my parents, right? And I had that moment and I woke up and I felt so bad, right? I blacked out, puked everywhere. Like, I had friends had to take care of me. It was the most embarrassing thing. I didn't feel good until like literally 24 hours later, right? I was like, oh, okay. That mindset. I'll say this too. My mom back in middle school made me do this like online math course. And the way like our deal was like, Tejas, you can do things that are fun if you complete these courses. And to this day, you know what? I'll tell you, this course was horrible, right? It would punish you when you get something wrong. So it's not like you'd have to get 100%, but it's not like, or you'd have to get a score of 100, but if you get something wrong, it would deduct points from you. Who thought of this? That's the worst thing. Like, just keep me at that number. And I remember my friend was like, Tejas, like, you want to go to Six Flags with me? And my mom was like, you have to complete these 6. And I was having so much trouble on this one. And I was just screaming at my mom. And I was like, Mom, I'm not going to finish this. And she's like, you're not going. You're not going. And I was like, I was so mad at her. But I mean, to this day, the discipline she taught me that I didn't even realize is nothing other. Right. And so, so grateful for that. And it's like, she took the brunt of it. She for 18 years, but now I'm like, I'm so grateful you did that. You know?
How do you then make it up to your parents, or at least
Yeah.
forge a better relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot more conscious when I hang out with them. I think that's number one, right? Learning more about them. Like my relationship with my parents have never been better to this day, right? I make it whenever I'm traveling, at least going out west or anything like that. I always make it a thing to spend the extra $200 to go to Chicago, spend a day with my parents, then come back to New York, right? It's like, oh, I always do that. Why not, right? But also, I'm just a lot more honest with them. Now they know who my friends are. They know where my head's at. They know like who I am as a person. I know who they are, right? I understand like they grew up in traditional India. Like I get it, right? I remember, this is a little off topic, but it comes back. It's like all my like close family friends, and their kids are a couple years younger than me. And there was a moment where they were all going to college, their first year in college, and I was a sophomore at this time. And it was like August, they were about to send their kids, and they were asking me, they're like, hey, just like, how do I make sure they're going to be okay? I don't know what was in me that day. I decided to just be so brutally honest with them. I was just like, I think you've already failed. I basically told them, I was like, you've set this cadence up with your children that they don't tell you anything. Like I made that mistake of, drinking too much and like not telling them and like being in bad situations when I should have just told them. Right. And like, let them know like that I was okay. And I'm like doing whatever. Right. And then they would have given me advice or whatever it is, but like at least they knew. And for them, I was like, the way the relationship that you have with your kids right now is that like, they won't tell you anything. They're going to just tell you every time you call them that everything's good. Right. That like they're making friends, school's going all right. And it'll be just this level 1 conversation. Right. It's like, you have like there's more to that, right? There's more that's happening in your kids' lives than they're telling you. And it's because like you're very distant with them. I think it's just them growing up in traditional India. But breaking that wall, making it not just like level 1 conversations.
Yeah, I've never thought about conversations being at levels.
Yeah.
But it's like the deeper you go, and that's what I try to do with these podcasts, is try to go as deep as possible below the surface. And that's why I suggest to people to have conversations where it's recorded between your parents and you, because you'll go deeper. You'll be able to find out things that you otherwise wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Going back to Cam, that like my best friend from college, I think a huge shifting point was there was one night we were just hanging out, smoking a couple stogies and just like hanging out in an apartment, and we were gonna watch like a basketball game. But I think something came over me. I was like, man, have you ever heard of the game like We Aren't Strangers Yet? Right. And I don't have the game, so I looked up the Quizlet version, which had all these like really deep questions, and I was like, you know what? Well, like turn the TV off, right? Like put your phone aside. Like, I'd love to just ask you these questions, right? And they're like really tough questions. Like, I can't think of any one off the top of my head, but like I remember going to bed that night, and I was like, I just feel closer to Cam. Like I understand him in a whole different level. He understands me at a whole different level now. Wow. I think it was such a pivotal moment. Right. And like, that's why he feels like a brother to me.
Wow. What was the name of the game?
We Aren't Strangers Yet.
We Aren't Strangers Yet.
We Aren't Strangers Anymore. Something like that.
Okay.
Funny enough, Yes Theory, Yes Theory, those YouTubers, they created a similar game called Spark, I believe.
To spark deeper conversations with
people. Yeah. It's a card game. So you pull a card and it's just a question. And it's like everyone takes turns answering it. They're very deep questions. Yeah.
Very cool. So closing it off on friends, I know your friend Dylan is opening up a ice cream shop.
Yeah.
It's incredible. He went from
it's all right.
creating TikToks to creating an actual physical store. And you played a key role in making that happen, and we'll play a key role in making that happen in the future too, right?
Yeah. Crazy story. I think one of the coolest things, right? So Dylan Lemay, right? He has 11 million followers on TikTok, 3+ million subscribers. And like in the most antithesis way that I think you can do on YouTube and TikTok. They're not flash. It's unlike, the Mr. Beast way of things, right? He makes ice cream, right? So again, straps a camera to his like neck, points it down at his, and he worked at a Cold Stone for 9 years. And so he'd just show him making ice cream. It's very visual, very satisfying, but he'd voice over different stories of his life or like what's happening in his moment. And like he's got this amazing fan base of people who are just connected to him and like what he does. And so I remember that TikTokers, YouTubers boxing event 1 month prior. One of my audience members, so one of the fans of my content was a guy named Chris Camillo, right? He has his own YouTube account called, with his 2 best friends called Dumb Money TV. He's just this like incredible investor, unbelievable investor. Somehow just his YouTube account is like about him and his friends turning $30,000 into $30 million. Wow. Right. It's like one of the nicest guys. And I got in contact with him and he's like, hey, come to LA. Right. Let's have a meal. Right. And so we had this like 2-hour-long meal, just getting to know each other. And he goes, Tejas, I think like I want my next investments to be in the creator economy space. And you obviously like know the pulse of the space. And I was like, my goal is really just to get to know as many people in the space as possible. Even now in New York, that's like kind of the role I'm playing. He goes, if you know a creator that has a great audience and like some sort of product or something, they want to take it to the next level, let me know. Come a month later, right? I hacked my way into getting into conversation with Dylan. And we were talking and Dylan goes, I remember it was like 2 hours before our flights. He's like, yeah, I think my next steps are to create my own ice cream shop, right? Because he's like, I worked at Cold Stone. Things with Cold Stone in terms of like whatever partnership they were doing is not working out. Like, I want to start my own thing. I was like, that sounds really cool. I think I know the guy that could help. That was June like 14th, June 17th. All 3 of us have a call. And from there on, it was like, oh, let's make this happen. Right. And they asked me, they were like, what type of role do you want to play, Tejas? I was like, I want to be on this journey. Like, this is so cool. Right. And so, yeah, I right now my role, whatever you want to call it, chief content officer. I call myself a creative advisor. I don't spend too much time. Right. But it's really to help Dylan with his content, understand what is the marketing, the content going to look like for Catch and Ice Cream. That's the name of the company. Right. And work with creators and work with different companies in the creator economy space to, make this as cool as possible. So very mutually beneficial with me because I'm trying to connect with all these cool companies and these cool creators who are trying to get involved.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just to see how you played such a critical role in that is, it's so cool to see. And so what is the future of your role with that store?
Yeah. I think, jumping back to that car ride, that 20-minute car ride with Samir, right? At that moment, I was really debating on, am I going to be an operating partner in this, right? And Chris wanted me to be the main operating partner. I mean, that's like 40, 50 hours a week, right? It's like I'm running the P&Ls. Like I'm going to look into hiring. I'm going to get the key partners for this thing. Under obviously the guidance of Chris. And I was like, this is a good salary. It's good equity. It's like, I will be in the creator space still. And I was talking to Samir about it. He's like, Tejas, you want to be a creator, don't you? Right? Like, do you really you can be this operating role, but you're not going to be a creator anymore, at least to the level that you want to be. And so that's why I was like, I had to tell them straight up. I was like, this isn't the right role for me at the moment. Right. But I would love to be involved. And I think the way that I can be involved is is doing what I do best. That is understanding the content world and understanding the creator world and connecting that with Catch and Ice Cream. Right. So this isn't just a normal ice cream shop. This isn't like a scoop and give place. Like it's so social media driven. Right. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't reveal too many details quite yet. But what I can say is it's very experiential.
Yeah. Well, I want to just take a second to commend you for your unbelievable level of self-awareness and knowledge of where you want to go, because a lot of people might look at the opportunities you've been presented, take them and run with them. But instead, you've had a level of understanding that's not your path. And I just really appreciate talking to you for however long we've been talking and getting to know your story at a deeper level.
I mean, that self-awareness is just driven from, I'm such a strong believer of that quote of like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You're the average of your top 5 people you hang out with, right? And it's like, I've put myself in a place where I'm just surrounded by so many mentors and people that like push me day to day. And people like Samir, like Chris Camillo, like Joe Albanese, like Eric Way from Carrot, or like my friend Andrew Leonard at YouTube, or Dylan, and these people that have just amazing mindsets, all in the combination. Sean and Danny from my newsletter, right, who are two of the best creatives that I know, right, and that's who I compare to. I'm like, my storytelling sucks compared to them, right? It's like, it's just who you anchor yourself to, right? And it's like the culmination of all of these like huge influences in my life that have led me to like, I think, the success and the self-awareness that I have today.
Okay, before we wrap it up,
do
you have a final challenge for the audience, for someone listening right now who wants to improve themselves as a person or as a creator? Do you have a challenge you could leave the audience with?
Creator or person, you decide.
Let's do both.
Okay. As a creator, let me think. I would say the challenge should be to post one thing online. If you didn't have to care about views, you didn't have to care about your part. Like, what is just one thing you want to post? And the only thing that you should concentrate about is like, what is the person you are 20 years from now want to see, right? One video is not going to change the world, right? But just do it. Sorry, like one video is not going to. Sure, it might not get as many views as like whatever your other content is, but just post one video. See how it makes you feel. So that's how I would say to any creator. And to any person, wow, what a tough question. I would say really understand how to cook. It'll change your life. No, I think out of all seriousness, I think a lot of people have a lot of aspirations and goals. And like one thing I've really reminded myself is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like that very top point, which is like self-actualization. It's like that all your dreams, your goals here can't come until you have that foundation set of, make sure you have enough sleep and your head's in the right place and like you're eating right and that you have good people in your circles and you are just like physically, mentally happy and all that stuff. You can't jump to the top unless all those bottoms are filled out.
So what's the challenge?
Oh, the challenge. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll do this because I'm going to do this super soon. And I think I'm going to document this. 24 hours, no technology.
I love that.
Just do it.
That's so great.
See what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I've never done it.
It's amazing.
Have you done it?
5 days, no technology.
You've done 5 days?
Incredible. Turned all clocks off, everything in the room. Like I went to an Airbnb. I learned more about myself and came to more conclusions. It's why this podcast is here today, because I wrote down 100 guests and was like, oh, I need to do a podcast. And then it led to this. So
were you bored?
The first couple of days, bored isn't really the right word to describe it, but just I needed the dopamine. I felt like I needed a text message and so it was a great experience. So I recommend it. 24 hours is a great place to start.
He's like, that's baby steps.
Where can we connect with you further?
Oh, at Tejas Hullur on everything. The positives having a unique name. I get all the handles.
Yes, you do. And they're all linked below. Oh, thank you, man.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah. This was incredible. I'm so grateful for you.
Grateful for you.
Yeah.
Who knew one dinner where we ate jellyfish
and sat next to each other could lead to an incredible podcast.
Yeah. Thank you all.